In this tutorial, we're going to look at importing DWG files and how we can use those files to 3D model over top of them. So with the File menu, we're going to go to Import, and we're going to go to the Resources folder and go to the Importing DWG Plans folder and set the files of type to be AutoCAD DWG DXF, and then select floor plan option A and B. Then what we need to do is under the options, we need to just make sure that it says millimeters, that we tick merge coplanar faces and orient faces consistently. With the preserved drawing origin, this can be quite helpful if you intend on adding more details to the DWG file in your CAD software. Because, for example, if you added an extra desk to your plan and you wanted that desk to come in exactly in the same place in SketchUp, you would preserve the drawing origin. But for this tutorial, we can just say OK and then select Import. It will give us the results of our import and then select Close, and you can see we've got a plan here. So with that plan comes layers. So in any CAD software, or most CAD softwares, you have a default set of layers. So we can purge any unused layers because some of them may not even have any data on them at all. So we can go to the Details button here under Layers and go Purge. And you can see in reality there was only 2 layers that had anything on them. So that's a good way of cleaning up layers. The next thing I might do is just turn off the doors, the door layer. And I'm going to select the walls, select them all like that. Then when I right click and make it a group, you can see it contains all the walls because I want to make sure that they don't get tangled up with the doors. Now there's one thing to keep in mind. I was actually on the layer 0 as my active layer, so when I created that group, it automatically put the group onto layer 0. So usually you would want the group to be on a layer, so I can move that group to the walls layer. And usually you want the contents to be on layer 0. So we're going to select everything inside and move that to layer 0. That's because in SketchUp we always work in layer 0, so if we draw anything within a group that's already on a layer, layer 0 goes with the group layer. So you can see that the group is one walls, so if I was to turn off one wall's visibility, the rectangle just disappears with the group. And I was working on layer 0 all the time, which means that you never need to change the layer that you're working on, which is really good. Now we can close or turn off the visibility of one walls and turn on the visibility of one doors and one door one, and I can now select that, right click, make it a group also, again, and put it onto layer 0 because that's the active layer. I now want to move that to one door one, and then edit the group and select the contents and move that to layer 0. And at this point here, I don't really need the door arches for just a 3D model, so I can just go ahead and delete those. Or I could use the select tool and just select from right to left holding control, and I can select every door swing. Okay, so I want a quick way of filling in the door surfaces so I can extrude them, and the walls. So if we just turn back on the walls, you can see here that the walls have no surface, so they cannot be extruded upwards. So to be able to use the walls, the best thing we've figured out is that you can draw a rectangle around everything. And I'm just going to turn off the door layer for the moment. We can then select all, so Control A, right click and intersect with context. And by doing that, it breaks the surfaces and the edges into the surface. Sometimes it's a little bit hit and miss, so you can see that the walls are, and the floor is just one big slab of data, so sometimes you need to just draw over top of a piece of wall, and that will reinforce that it's actually meant to be the floor and the walls. So again, we've got a few areas that need tweaking, just where we've got some flaws. And you just draw a piece of line over top of the walls, and you can see now that the walls are separating from the floor. So this is a bit of a manual way of doing it. Typically I would actually recommend using something like Profile Builder to make your walls, and just draw directly over top of the DWG file that came in. So for example, if I went to the Profile Builder, I've got a wall here. I can move the insertion point to the bottom left. I can then click Build, and you can see now I could just click on the plan, and just follow the walls. And it's really simple to use, and you can build up your 3D walls really quickly. And you can load as many profiles as you like into Profile Builder and just build those up. So that could be an option for you. I know that most people won't have Profile Builder, so we're going to draw the walls by using the DWG plan. Okay, so now that we've cut out the walls and separated it from the floor, we have a nice clean surface, which is fortunate because whoever drew the DWG made sure that there was no gaps in any of the walls, so it managed to fill in a nice clean surface. If we get the push-pull tool, I can now push-pull up those walls, and we'll go to 700. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Now what we need to do is put some lintels across the doors. So to do that, you would select the top edge, like so, and hold Control, and you can select more than one. And I'm just dragging around the top edge, or you could hold Control and click on the edge there, like that. And I'm just finding any doors that need to go across to the opposite wall. Okay, so I've got them all now, I think. Then with the Move tool, I can press Control on my keyboard, click, and move down those lines 700. And if I'm not happy with that, I could actually say 600. I can keep modifying the distance as many times as I want until I change my tool. So if I push spacebar, I can no longer modify that distance, unless I just go undo and redo it all again. Next, I want to push pull all the lintels across, and you can see I've push pulled it across. And if you're lucky enough, if the door width is the same, you can double click and it will repeat the same distance after push pulling it to the other side. So I'm just going to go through and push pull those. Okay, that's good. And I think I've got most of them. Just one more there. Okay, now we have a little bit of cleanup to do. So with the eraser, I can just erase the lines, but I know that there's another line on the other side. So you can go into X-ray mode and just erase those lines so that they don't show up in your model when you're presenting it. So you can hold the mouse button down and drag it over the two lines with the eraser, and there's another one on top there in that instant. There's just one in that side. On that side I can't really do it because there's a little step out, and on this side there's maybe one on this face here, so X-ray again, it's just one on that side. You'll know if you've accidentally deleted something and the surface disappears. Okay, we've got a line there that could go. Where a curved surface meets a flat edge, you can see that there's a line. So if I click on that, that's not quite what I want. I need to undo that. And this time I'm going to hold Control with Erase, and that will just simply soften and smooth the curve into the flat surface. Now to create a floor slab, I could go and get the rectangle tool. And I could just simply start at this top left corner and drag it to the other corner, opposite corner, and click. And it creates a rectangle from that rectangle I can click on the floor and bring it down 150, enter, or 200. You can just keep adjusting while you're in the same tool. With the select tool, I can triple click on the floor, or since these walls are in a group, if I change my view, I can select around the floor and confidently know that I haven't selected the bottom side of the wall group, which is really helpful. So groups are a really good thing. I'd recommend using them all the time. So right click on the floor, select make group, and now I've got a floor slab. And if I wanted to, I could create a layer. So I could go add a layer with the plus button, floor, slab, or just floor. While it's selected, it's telling me that it's on layer 0. I can then use the drop down and move that to the floor slab layer. So that's looking pretty good. I need to bring back my doors now, and I need to extrude my doors upwards. So I can double click on one of the doors, and I want to hide everything apart from the doors. So to do that, you can go to Window, Preferences, go to Shortcuts. In the filter, you could type in Hide Rest of Model. And you can see here I've found the function. I can now go to Add Shortcut, press H, click on the plus button. If there's an existing one already being used there, I can select yes, I want to overwrite that, and then select OK. So now when I'm back in SketchUp editing a group, I can press H on my keyboard, and you can see it just hides the rest of the model. So the simplest way to fill in these doors would be to get a line, click on one end, and they're all in line with one another. So I can now click on the other door, and you can see it's just reinforced that these were meant to be surfaces. So I can now erase the lines in between the doors. Same again over here, I can get the line tool, take it past the door maybe this time, and it just puts caps on the ends of the doors to reinforce that they're meant to be surfaces. Oh, one more that I missed, so I can just draw a little line across there. And another little door over here. So we're using all of that DWG data, you know, we're making good use of it. So this is ideal for people that don't have a CAD software that can produce 3D. If you do, you can maybe just draw the walls in the likes of ArchiCAD or Revit and export those walls to SketchUp for finer detail work. So now to push-pull up the doors, we can click on them and bring it up, and we made the door heights to 100, enter, and we can confirm that by pressing H, and you can see it fits the door opening perfectly. So then I can go ahead and double click on any other door surface, and it will go ahead and push-pull that up. So to do that again, I click on the door, go up to 100, enter. As soon as I have done my first distance, I can then double click on the other distances or on the other surfaces, and they will go the same distance. Alright, so that's looking really cool. Next I want to show you how you can create two different layout options and present different options using layouts. So what we want to do first is create a couple of layers. So I'm going to go add a layer, and we're going to say option 1, or option A, option B, option B. Okay, so I've got a couple of layers already ready for my options that I want to present. Next what I can do is go File, Import, and from the same folder where I imported the DWG from, I can now set the files to type to be SketchUp files. And if I go to Thumbnails, you can see I've got some 2D disks. So I'm going to click on that disk and select Import. And so what I did there was create two versions of the same, I guess, component. So I've created a 2D version and a 3D version, and they share a similar insertion point. So I can go ahead and create my first option. So I'm just going to copy that with the Move tool and Control, move that into position using the Move tool and sometimes Shift to lock it in on axis. I can then select the two shapes and copy that like so. Then I could select those two, get the move tool and copy it to the right. Then right click, flip along the red axis and put that back into there. Then I could select all those and move and copy those to the right as well. So I've got, a set of 16 disks. I can select them all now, right click on one of them, select make group, and that's now going to become my option A. So I can then, as soon as I make it a group, I can choose what layer I want to put it onto. So option A is complete. Now what I need to do is create option B. So I'm going to go and copy my first option and turn off option A layer. I can then go to edit, paste in place, and it will paste in place it, but the problem is I can't see where it pasted and placed it to, because it's on the same layer as option A. The visibility of that's still turned off. So if I now go up to layers and move that to option B, it will reappear. So now if I double click on the option B group, because option A is invisible, I can now change my layout. So if I go to the move tool, I can go and just change the shape, like so. And with every group or component and the move tool, when you hover over a group or component, you get the rotation tool, and we can rotate the disks to be a different layout. Okay, so instead of doing the other one beside us, we're just going to select and delete those and select and copy the new layout over. So at the moment it doesn't look like much, it's just 2D drawings, it's not really 3D. But what we're going to do is we create some scenes first. So I've got a view that shows off my layout really nicely. I can now go to scenes, and what I did under layers is just turned off the option B layer and put back on option A. Go to scenes and create a scene. And I want to name that scene, so I want to just shrink this up a bit. Okay, so scene 1 is going to be option A. And now I'm going to go back to layers, turn off the visibility of option A, turn on the visibility of option B. And you can see it just swapped over the view. And now add another scene and call it option B. So if I flick between the scenes now, you can see option A and option B. Now, the cool thing about components is when I imported that disk, that's a component. So if I right click on that and go and reload that, yes, I want to reload it, I can choose a disk that I'd like to reload it with. So I could say, okay, I want to go disk 1 and then go open. And it's automatically just reloaded the disk. But the really interesting thing is that that component was also in the group of option B. So when I click on option B scene, it's also updated that scene because they're the same component. So for example, if I double click on one of the components or the groups, one of the options, so option B, if I open up the component within option B, I now have my disk. And you can see they're all selected as I click away on things. So if I was to get the circle tool and let's just draw ourselves a little cup, I can pull that up. I could select my cup and go to scale tool, hold control and just maybe flare it out a little bit. When I escape with the select tool, if I have the select tool active, I can just escape out of my component quite quickly. You can see the cup's now been drawn on every component. Option A also has my cup. So it's really cool if you ever create components for this sort of layout work, if you create a 2D and a 3D version, because you can just right click, reload, and reload it with a different component. And you can see I reloaded it with one with a computer. So there's a really quick tutorial on how to use DWG files, bringing them in and using the data that you've brought in, and how you can use layers and components to present different options with SketchUp.